I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you want a real connection with the person you're dating, not just surface level small talk. If you're craving intimacy, but you're tired of feeling like it's all on you to start these deep conversations, this episode is for you. I'm going to share 10 practical ways to build emotional closeness that feel natural and don't rely on you doing all the heavy lifting. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out. I believe dating can be fun. And you know what? On that note, I just want to remind you up top that if you're not having fun with someone, don't date them, okay? It's really that simple. Dating on some level should be fun, whether it's the activity you're doing or being in the presence of the person you're dating. Ideally, it's both. But if you're not having fun, consider this your permission to send them an anti-ghost text and move on. If you're looking for a life partner, someone to be with for a long time, it has to be fun. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way because I feel like with some DMs I've been getting, it's not fun for you, or you're just kind of like, do I keep pushing forward with someone who checks all my boxes but I don't enjoy? And the simple answer is no. You've got to enjoy their presence. Just have to get that out of the way. Let's jump right in. We are talking about how to foster, build, and develop that emotional connection I know you're looking for with someone in early dating. First, we're going to talk a bit about what connection is and isn't. We're going to follow that with 10 specific ideas you can try out with the person you're dating right now or future dates, people you will date, to build more connection and emotional intimacy. And of course, if you are in a more established relationship, all of this stuff I'm going to share today applies. After that, I'm going to get into a dating dilemma about going too slow in dating, and there's a new text support. I'm really glad you guys are liking the new segments, so thanks for letting me know. I'm going to keep doing them. Connect with me on Instagram anytime at dating.intentionally. You're welcome to slide into my DMs with questions. I'm here for you. So when I say connection in this episode, I also mean emotional intimacy on some levels. Like, this is the glue that keeps you together. Connection is one of the 3 pillars you need in a relationship to last, in addition to compatibility and communication. So connection and emotional intimacy alone can't carry a relationship, as you probably have run into at this point. If you have a strong connection but you're not compatible, it's just not going to work. But I really wanted to focus a whole episode on just connection because I feel like a lot of us are missing the mark when it comes to what it takes to actually create it with someone. And this was evident when I did a poll on my Instagram, which revealed something that I'm curious, and I wonder if you believe this too, but it revealed that there's this belief that emotional connection only happens or primarily happens through deep conversations, through talking and verbally sharing things with each other. And look, having deep conversations is super important. Don't get me wrong. I want you to be having these deep, serious, revealing conversations where you're sharing things about each other. But I think when we focus so hard on what we're talking about or not talking about in dating, we miss all the other ways we can connect with people. So this episode is going to help you navigate those connections that you have with people who might be a little more guarded or disconnected from their emotions, but, without doing so much emotional labor. I don't want you to feel like you're just pushing a boulder uphill with these people you're dating when you're trying to get to know them and kind of go below the surface, because sometimes you can't just take that route. Sometimes you can't white knuckle through it. You have to actually take a different route to build this emotional connection. And I want to touch on something, this is what inspired this episode, because it's something I hear over and over again in my DMs, working with clients and people I talk to who are dating. And that's that some straight women are frustrated by some men not being able to have deep conversations and not initiating them. Like, there is this frustration that I sense, and I'm wondering if you've experienced this as well, that there are just some guys out there who can't access more emotional parts of them, or they don't really know how to communicate these things. Maybe they've never even thought about some things when these deep conversations happen, and they can't talk about it because they just don't know. It's like a gap. And a lot of women tell me they feel so drained from doing all this labor to get men to open up, to explore deep stuff, and everything from what someone learned in a past relationship to how someone feels about their life and the people in it. And I get it. Most of the guys that I dated, didn't ask deep questions either. I talked about this before on the podcast, but some men and women and people just don't naturally do this. And also varies by culture. Some cultures, you don't get into these conversations with people depending on the culture. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's just how some people are socialized and we have to be aware of it. And I get that it's annoying, and we're going to address some of that frustration today. The headline of this episode is that building a strong connection and developing emotional intimacy is so much more than talking. And I believe that you're going to have way more fun connecting with someone when you stop trying to sit down and have these deep conversations and instead create situations where there's more emotional safety and trust, and maybe these topics will come up more organically. Here we go with the top 10 ways to build emotional intimacy and strengthen your connection. These are in no particular order. They apply to people who are in long distance relationships. They apply to people who are dating locally. They apply to all ages, whether you're in your 50s or your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, whatever. This is all for you, and you're going to do your own version of these things based on what is accessible to you, what is available to you. So let's get creative. Let's open our minds and go through these together. Okay, the first one on my list is go on a road trip. Okay, get in the car, rent a car, get out on the road together. Why does this build emotional connection? Well, think about all the things you have to do to make a road trip happen. Okay, you are navigating together, making sure you don't get lost. There's probably some planning involved or not. Maybe it's full on spontaneous. Let's randomly take a left here or randomly take a right there. You're maybe stopping along the way to take pictures. You're sharing music and stories as you're driving. You're enjoying pretty scenery and talking side by side. And that is the key to this one on the list. When you're in motion, whether it's walking, driving, whatever, and you're with someone side by side, it's a lot easier to get into those deep conversations. So this is just one way in to setting up an environment where you might feel more comfortable sharing because you're not staring at each other. It's a little less intense and you're able to interact with other things around you. But aside from the opportunities to talk on a road trip, remember that everything I'm sharing today is about having experiences and making new memories with someone. So this is a really fun, easy, accessible way to do all of that and have the opportunity to get into some deep conversations, especially through sharing music together, sharing stories. Like, a lot can come up when you're in motion together. So this is definitely one to try. I would say at least after a month of dating, you could take a day trip. It doesn't have to be overnight. You want to do this after you've confirmed they're not a total weirdo and that you would be fine being in a car with them for 2 to 3 hours or more. So let's just, this is not a third date thing that you're doing, but I would say after a month of dating, go for it. Okay, the second one on the list is to spend a whole unplanned day together. This is not only a way to build your emotional connection, but also a way to test, how your relationship will feel, because in early dating, like, you're kind of setting the stage for a relationship the whole time. You're kind of like testing out what that relationship is going to be like. And I think in a long-term relationship, you have many unplanned days together where you're just existing at home or you're just existing together and you don't really have a plan. And some of you might be doing this from the jump, like with people you're dating. If you're like me and you like to go slow or you're just really busy, you can't carve out a whole day for someone. The first time you do spend an entire day together might feel very different, might feel a little off, feel a little like, whoa, this is different. And the idea with this one is that when you're kind of waking up with someone, doing an entire day and going to sleep with them, like you're doing literally from morning to night with someone, there might be some boring spots, there might be some lulls, but you're also just seeing how you flow together. You're creating familiarity, you're testing your comfortability with one another, you're letting your guard down a bit, and this is all going to contribute to a stronger emotional connection down the line. Or it might show you they're not the kind of person that you want to do mundane stuff with. Everything on this list is going to reveal that either there's someone you want to keep investing in and there's someone you want to be around, or not. And that's another reason why this is so important to try. Number 3 on my list, which is kind of related to number 2, is run errands together. So this is kind of a shorter version of spending a whole unplanned day together. But I know it sounds boring, but hear me out. You can learn a lot about your connection with someone on a trip to Costco, right? If you have a membership, or go to IKEA together. Obviously, those are big errands, but you can also just, find out if they're fun to wait in line with at the pharmacy, right? Find out what it's like to go grocery shopping with them. And this is another way to kind of break out of the date box, the dinner date box. Do something a little different and build more trust, build more of a connection through what is life like when we're just doing life together, not on a date, not on a formal, we are planning this date, we're going on this date together. What is it like when we're running errands? I remember early on when I was dating Johnny, we had a blast waiting in line together for various things. We had a blast grocery shopping together. I definitely brought out my goofy side on those first few trips to the grocery store and was being super silly with him. I was kind of probably being annoying. But again, the idea is just to break out of the date box, get in new environments, and have your connection grow that way. Because to be honest, your emotional connection isn't going to grow much if you're just doing dinner dates. You have to hang out with each other in other contexts. Okay, number 4 is a little bit more on the nose. It is show them around a place that's nostalgic to you or ask them to show them a nostalgic place to you. So this would involve, if you can, visiting a location that is nostalgic to either one of you. That could be a college campus. It could be a hike or a store or a restaurant that you used to go to when you were a kid. You know what I mean? Just something that from your past or their past. And if you don't live where you grew up and they don't live where they grew up, you can replicate this by doing an activity that they used to do or you used to do in your childhood, like maybe going to an aquarium or doing a pottery class where you're painting pottery, whatever, just something that's nostalgic that feels like old school. Maybe it's going to a roller rink, right? Who else went to roller rinks growing up? So this is a great way to spark more emotional connection because you're going down memory lane together and you're going to naturally have conversations about your and their past. You're going to naturally get into conversations about family, upbringing, and memories of childhood that maybe are more difficult to access when you're just staring at each other on a date. So definitely make a point to do this early on. I would say you could do this within the first month. You could do this after the first month of dating. You could do this even if you've been together for years. And I love this one because, hopefully you're going to follow memory lane down towards something positive, something that they enjoyed as a kid, or that you enjoyed as a kid. And this will also help kind of foster more joy in your relationship and create more memories that you're like, wow, that was so fun that we did that. And you're going to learn more about them and they're going to learn more about you if you try this out. Number 5 on my list is integrate each other into your life more. And I talked about this in depth on episode 174, which I'll link, about navigating new relationship first. But the general idea here is meeting friends and family and bringing someone into your routine, right? Maybe you don't have family around, whatever. And look, meeting friends can happen after the first date. It can be casual. It can be just a low stakes scenario. You don't have to make it this big formal thing. I used to bring dates to my climbing group every week. So I went climbing regularly with a group of friends once or twice a week. So I'd just be like, hey, we're going climbing, join us. And that was a way for people, that was my version of integration. And this is another way to feel closer to someone without talking about your relationship, without talking about the deep things you're craving. You can just do it. You could just be in their life and see what that feels like instead of just trying to have these conversations. When you integrate someone into your life, you are saying, hey, I want you to be part of my life. You are showing with your actions that you're interested in them. And it goes both ways, obviously. I remember when I was first starting to date Johnny, before we were even official, he introduced me to his local friends. And that meant a lot to me. I was like, okay, he just moved here and he has some friends already who were already here, and he's bringing me into that part of his life. He must have really liked me. And I felt like I had a better understanding of him right away. This was before we were official, because I met some of the people in his life early on. And understanding each other is a really big part of having a connection. And I think this is super, super important to just figure out a way to integrate. And also, if you bring it up early, you're going to get a sense of like how open they are to making that move, how open they are to having you meet their friends or family or join them on something that's in their routine. And that is a huge sign. Like if they're not open to that, they might not be ready for a relationship, or they might just be a very slow burn type of person, which is fine. Okay, number 6. This is a classic. No one's surprised this is on the list, but try something new together. This is something that you'd want to do routinely in your relationship. Trying new things together, injecting your relationship with novelty is a way to keep that spark alive, even when you've been together for decades. So if you want to make this a routine, start early, do new things together. I mean, there's a lot of science behind having novel experiences, especially with someone else. Novelty boosts dopamine in our brains. It also increases arousal and excitement. And trying new things together generally helps couples feel more connected. You're sharing experiences, especially ones that are new to both of you or maybe out of the box. That's going to help you build trust, deepen intimacy, and give you very meaningful memories to look back on. Even if things totally go wrong, right? You can laugh about it later. Even if you don't like it, even if it's not that fun, you're kind of embracing the suck together. So, also challenging yourselves leads to more bonding. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy either. It can just be like you want to try a fondue restaurant. You've never been to one before, or you want to try hot pot for the first time, or you just want to try taking a soul cycle class together. It doesn't have to be something really adventurous or expensive or extravagant, just something different and new to both of you, ideally. I mean, you see people on dating reality TV shows do this all the time. And I think this does kind of manufacture a connection between two people. So when they have a new experience that's maybe a little scary or a little challenging, and they're going to feel more bonded after that, usually, unless, one of them is a total a-hole during the whole thing. And then you learn that maybe they're not the kind of person you want to do these things with. And I actually have an example of this. In my early 20s, before I met my ex, I was dating someone for a few months and I took him skiing and it was his first time. And I'm a snowboarder, but when I'm with a novice skier, I will get on skis too to like even the playing field a little bit. And he got so frustrated because he wasn't able to ski, like he wasn't able to do it, that he almost stormed off the mountain. And that was one of the biggest turnoffs ever that I've ever seen. I would prefer someone who's a good sport, can laugh at themselves and just kind of have a good time, even if they're struggling. That's the kind of person I am, at least. So that was very revealing. Doing new things together can be so revealing when it comes to who they are and their character, and if you even want to keep going with them. So make sure one of those early dates you're doing is something new and you're going to learn a lot. All right, number 7 is doing question card deck / trying the 36 love questions. So this list would be incomplete without a conversation-based tip. Obviously, the whole thing I'm trying to show you is that you can build connection in various ways, but talking is one of them. So the 36 love questions, I'll link below, really work. And they're basically a set of questions. You're supposed to do them in order to feel closer to someone. Johnny and I did them about 3 questions at a time after we became official. So, like 2 months into our relationship. And we both have positive, vivid memories of doing some of these questions on a date we had in Italy, which was our first trip together. That led to some of our favorite conversations we've ever had. And I really felt bonded to him after doing those. So if you have someone who's open to it, go for it. Not every question's a winner. We definitely skipped a couple of them, but I think it's fun to try. And the other thing we love are question card decks from, I have a box I'm holding up right now. The And has so many different kinds of card decks. We are loving the Strangers edition right now, but we also have the couples and dating editions, and we love them. Again, not every question is going to be a winner. Sometimes you skip them, but usually I grab a few cards, throw them in my bag for a dinner date, and we can kind of use them while we're waiting for our food. And if you want to check out the And decks, I actually do have a code for you. So at checkout, you can use code Talia for a discount, and I will link that below. These are great. We love them. And the reason why I'm recommending 36 love questions and these card decks is that sometimes when you have an external source, like a list of questions or a card deck, it helps take the pressure off you feeling like you are doing so much emotional labor, like trying to get into these conversations. It's like, I'm not asking you when the last time you cried was. This question list is asking you. I didn't have to come up with that question. I'm just using this list. And it does take the pressure off. It does kind of even things out a little bit. It's like, okay, we're using this list or these cards together. You're both going to answer the questions and you're both going to have turns to share. By the way, if you're long distance, this is something you can incorporate into your dates. And you can also try this app called Agape, which I love. It's free. Basically, it's this question app where you both answer questions that are relationship related, And you can see each other's answers when you've both have answered the question. And Johnny and I have tried this when I was away for over a week and I wanted to like stay connected. Love the questions, love the experience. The only difference is that it's text-based instead of talking face to face, but I still think it's a great way for long distance couples to have more of that connection. All right, moving right along. Number 8 is let them nerd out about something. Okay, I don't know about you, but there's nothing more endearing to me when someone you're into starts nerding out about something, like talking about it very passionately. I love letting Johnny go on and on about Lord of the Rings and Star Trek because he's so into it and so animated when he talks about it. Like, I just can't help it. I love listening to him talk about it, even though I do not care about Lord of the Rings or Star Trek. I mean, okay, I watch Star Trek now pretty much every night and it's fun, but it's not something I would have done on my own. When you're getting to know someone, I want to encourage you and challenge you to find the thing that they're really passionate about that you think they could talk about for hours and let them talk about it. Give them the space, show interest, show that you want to hear them talk about it. Let them get nerdy on you, especially when it's someone you are into and attracted to. It is so cute. We love it. You can be like, okay, you really seem to know a lot about XYZ. Like, tell me more. How did you get into that? Those are the kinds of questions you want to ask to get them talking more. So this builds connection because you're getting to see a fun side of them if they have the space to talk about something they love and know a lot about. And 2, you're giving them the floor to be listened to. You're giving them the space to be listened to, which makes them feel seen and heard and valued. And that will help them feel more connected to you. It'll help them build more trust with you and open up to you about other things. Like, this does translate to having deeper conversations down the line. Like, I love this tip because it closes the gap between the person who is maybe really an open book and ready to share everything and the person who's more guarded. It's like, okay, what can we really get into that isn't emotions related that we can both kind of deep dive into and have a deep conversation about, but it's not necessarily about your emotions or about your thoughts about relationships and all that stuff. And this is a feeling they'll remember, right? They'll remember your undivided attention and interest in this thing that they're super passionate about. And I think they'll feel really appreciated and valued for it. Of course, it goes both ways. Obviously, I want someone to do that to you as well. I want someone to give you the floor. I know what you're thinking. It's like, well, I'm happy to do that, but what about me? I get it. And if someone isn't allowing you to go off about that thing you love, I encourage you to just take up that space. If there's something, if you land on something in a conversation you know a lot about, let your nerdiness shine. Let it show, even if they don't ask. That's the way you can kind of wedge yourself in there if they're not asking, because not everyone knows to do that. Not everyone listens to this podcast. So, like, just know you can take up that space. You can take the floor. You don't have to wait to be asked. So just know that. All right, number 9, another kind of obvious one, but important one, is to get active together. This could be doing something physical together, obviously within your physical abilities, and it's a great way to connect emotionally. This could be something like exercise related, like biking, hiking, yoga, lifting, climbing, whatever, but it also can be something that's not movement related, like crafting, playing with Legos, cooking, baking, going on a photography walk, playing video games. Like, it doesn't have to be exercise. So when I say get active, I don't necessarily mean exercise. When Johnny and I were first dating, we did a lot of hiking, biking, and walking, and we also went indoor bouldering a bunch. But I think for us, the hiking, and also like for other people I've dated, hiking was a really good way to get more into deep conversations. And similar to the long drive road trip tip I mentioned earlier, when you're walking with someone either side by side or someone's in front of you on a hike, it's like you get into this monotony of just walking and the conversation can flow really freely. You can find yourself, it's just you're talking to pass the time and it's really nice and easy. No matter what your activity is that you want to do with someone, you'll be surprised at how deep you can get with someone when you're doing something active, when you're doing something that is kind of like this external thing that you're both focused on, but you're allowing conversation to happen, right? This isn't going to happen when you're at the movies. This isn't going to happen when you're at a concert or a comedy show, but it's going to happen when you are both interacting with something external and sitting next to each other or sitting with each other and just talking. I think that for some men, it's easier to talk when you're doing something like an activity rather than just sitting down on a date, sitting face to face. You know what I mean? And I read in so many books and heard from so many other dating experts that men connect more through experiences while women connect more through conversation. So finding the activity that combines the two is going to be great for your emotional connection. All right, the last one on my list is to play games. Similar to getting active, I also want you to get competitive. Playing games and, whether it's their co-op games where you're playing together or, games where you're playing against each other, these will bring lighthearted vibes and connection into your relationship. This is another way where you can share an experience and you might even stumble upon a tradition or routine that you build into your relationship down the line. And if for Johnny and I, we started playing chess early in our relationship. Now we're playing a lot of card games and we play various games throughout the week that we both love. And it's a great way to connect and relax. And then usually afterwards, we feel super connected and like intimate with each other, even if we didn't talk about anything intimate, if that makes sense. Playing a game together, you're increasing your chances for shared laughter, teamwork, meaningful conversation, and all of this will support deeper intimacy. So there you have it. That's my list, my top 10 list. I hope that this inspires you to open your mind about what connection is and how it can happen. I hope that this is a good reminder that emotional intimacy doesn't just exist in conversations, and it's not just going to show up out of thin air. Emotional intimacy shows up in your experiences together and it's fostered by them. It's going to be hard to feel really emotionally connected to someone that you only go on dinner and drink dates with. On a broad level, I just want you to remember that emotional connection is built through a couple things: making memories, having experiences, learning to understand each other, and bonding over internal and external things, and most importantly, giving each other undivided attention. In all of these things I listed, there's opportunities to put the phone away, be present, and listen to each other, understand each other, be in the moment together. That's how you make memories and experiences and have experiences together. So undivided attention is huge. And I hope that this helps you kind of relax if you're not having deep conversations. Try to incorporate some of the things I mentioned today because it will probably make having deeper conversations easier when there's more trust and connection that's built in other areas of your relationship. Like if you can laugh together and you can have inside jokes and play together, getting into the deeper stuff is going to feel easier and more comfortable. It's also all this stuff makes dating more fun. Like that's the main reason I started this podcast. It's because I want you to have fun in your dating journey. And if you're so locked in on deep conversations, talking about the past, all this heavy stuff, which I get it, it's important, it's not going to be fun. I've got a few questions that came in from the listeners on this topic about connection. This is more about talking conversation. So the first question I got, and this came in a lot, was how much is too much to share? I want to connect, but I don't want to overshare. So in my opinion, too much is when you're sharing something with someone you're dating that you are actively processing. Like if it's something you're going through right now, something that's hard at work or with your family or something that's painful in your life and you're not really fully done getting through it, I think that's too much to share with someone. I think it's okay to be like, I'm kind of going through some stuff with my family, but you're not meant to process the entire thing with someone you just met. You know what I mean? There's a line between telling someone you're going through something and actively processing your emotions with them. And that's a distinction I want you to make. I also like to use the pool analogy, like there's a shallow end and a deep end. And when you're dating someone, you want to start in the shallow end. You don't have to share every single detail about everything that happened to you that was bad. You could just give them the overview of what went down in your past that you want to share. And then as you get to know them, as you make your way into the deep end, you can share more. As you build trust with them, as you understand if you're on the same page about your relationship, you can share more. But start in the shallow end. You don't have to give every detail. You don't owe that to them. All right, next question is, how does deepening the connection with someone work if the other person doesn't initiate or reciprocate? Okay, so I want to unpack this because there's two things here: initiating and reciprocating. Initiating, if they don't initiate, it's actually not that bad. Okay, I understand it's frustrating if you're the person who's initiating everything. You're the one who's bringing the ideas, conversations, and all the things that foster these connections. I get it. But if they're showing up willingly and enthusiastically, that's a great start. And if you want them to initiate something, you can tell them to. For example, There have been times in my relationship with Johnny where I tell him, like, hey, I want you to bring 3 questions to dinner, right? That's me being like, I want you to initiate this, even though I'm asking him to. And every time I've asked him to, he brings amazing questions, like better than mine. So, like, that's one way I'm kind of cueing my partner to initiate something with me. And of course, he is enthusiastic and willing to do all the things that I ask when it comes to our relationship because he values our relationship. Even if initiating isn't something that comes naturally to him, he wants to learn, he wants to figure it out, and he wants to step up. So that's why I'm saying it's not a deal breaker if they don't initiate necessarily. It might be something that you have to lead by example with them, ask them to do, and talk through with them. And also accept that sometimes in a relationship, you're in charge of doing this. And I get it. Like, you want it to be 50-50, but unfortunately, not everything's 50-50 in a relationship. If you're in charge of initiating the conversations and moments where you're connecting, they might be in charge of other things in your relationship. So just know that it's okay if that's going to be more your domain, and let them have their own domain in your relationship. Again, I just don't believe in 50-50 on everything. It can't be totally even. Okay, but the other side of this, if they don't reciprocate, if they don't show up, if they don't actually participate, that's where now we're in deal breaker land. Okay, that is not okay. Someone who shuts down and dismisses you every time you try to connect in various ways is not someone you want a relationship with. It doesn't work. If they're not even meeting you halfway, there is no way to deepen your relationship. So if you're like sharing stuff with them and they are silent, they say okay and don't really respond, if they dismiss you or belittle you or make fun of you, that's a no-go. They're done. No, we don't want that. That is not up to your standards. So just know that there's a huge difference between initiating and not initiating but still showing up, and not initiating or reciprocating and showing up in the moments where you're connecting. Okay, the last one is more of a struggle, not a question. And this person said, I struggle with giving connection time and space to develop. So I definitely feel this because connection absolutely takes time to build. Unfortunately, we can't just download all the information about someone in once, even though that would be, not make our lives easier. I'm encouraging you to be patient. I know that if you are having dynamic dates where you're doing all the fun things that I listed and you're getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things, playing games, going down memory lane, like, you will eventually connect with someone. If you spend enough time with someone, you're going to stumble upon your connection. You're going to build that emotional connection. Maybe it's more of a friend thing, maybe it's romantic, but it's going to happen. That's why, casual dating is so hard to do long term. Because if you keep spending time with someone and continue to open yourself up, it will happen. So I'm just saying, trust that it's going to happen. Give it time. And I think it's important to lean into the fun of letting someone unfold in front of you. Like when you read a book, you go page by page and the story builds. Getting to know someone can happen at a slower pace, and it shouldn't be this instant download of information. You're going to lose so much context and nuance that way. So I want you to lean into enjoying the ride of getting to know someone. If they're the right person, you have all the time in the world. Because when you are with someone for a long time, you keep getting to know them. You keep deepening your connection. It's a continuous process that you never really reach the finish line with. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about relationships. It continues to develop. So there is no rush when you meet someone who you are compatible with and who you have a good connection with. Thank you so much for your questions. You can DM me anytime on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I love hearing from you. All right, let's move on to our dating dilemma. I, 29 male, matched with someone, 27 female on a dating app about 4 months ago. From the start, we both expressed wanting to take things slow, but now I'm wondering if we've taken it too slow. By our 5th date, I tried to hold her hand for the first time, and she said, next time. That was a bit of a red flag for me. By our 8th date, there still hadn't been any physical affection. No kissing, no hand-holding, nothing. I felt like there was no spark or chemistry, so I told her maybe we should stop seeing each other. Honestly, physicality is not super important to me, but it's an indicator of how comfortable and interested someone is. She surprised me by saying she wanted to keep trying. She admitted she had been too controlling and said she would try to be more open. We've only had 1 date since then, and her being more open was just poking me more and friendly hugs, which she already gives. Our schedules have made it hard to meet up. Sometimes we go weeks without seeing each other due to our plans, and honestly, each time we meet, it feels like starting over with a stranger. Yikes. On paper, she seems like someone I should like, but there's a lack of excitement and connection, and I'm not sure if she's even attracted to me. I've recently started seeing other people, but I haven't fully closed the door on this one. Should I give it a chance, or is a slow pace and lack of chemistry a clear sign to let it go? All right, thanks for this. By the way, you can submit your dating dilemma in the show notes. There's a link there for you, so I answer these every time on the pod. And to quickly answer your question, no, you should definitely not continue to see this woman. And good for you for being thoughtful and actually trying to get to know her. But 8 dates is plenty. Next time, if you ever run into this again, bring it up sooner. Like after date 4, that's about when you can see if something is a pattern, if it's consistent. And I would have called her out a bit more after the handhold moment you mentioned, because like when it comes to someone's physical touch preferences, that's worth a conversation. And if you kind of called her out and you were like, hey, like, I noticed you're not super into hand holding. How do you feel about physical affection in a relationship? Then you would have gotten an understanding of where she's coming from a little bit sooner. Something that jumped out at me in your submission that I want to mention is that people show interest in different ways. So while you think physical touch is an indicator and you're not wrong, it just might not be true for everyone. So just keep that in mind. Also, I don't know if this needs to be said, but you can't really expect a full change after one mention of something one time, depending on what it is. You mentioned that you brought it up and she tried to be better about it on the next date, but you didn't see much of a change. I mean, what did you expect? When, if this is the way she's been operating her whole life, it's not going to change overnight. So when asking for an adjustment, it's better to give someone a little more time, though in this case, I'm pretty sure this is just not a match, and I'm not saying to keep dating her. I'm just saying in the future, don't expect a change overnight. And finally, I just want to say, I think a lot of daters can get caught up in this trap of dating someone who they think they should like because of who they are on paper or how they present themselves on the surface. But the second you find out that it's not a match for any reason, just move on. You don't have to force it. So thank you so much for submitting this. Again, you can submit your dating dilemmas in the show notes. And finally, we're going to wrap things up with our text support. So this is a segment where you are sending me screenshots of your confusing and convoluted text messages of people you're dating, and I'm going to help you figure out what to do. So this one came from a woman who went on a date with a guy and they're both in their 40s, and let me read the text and then I'll tell you what she wrote. Okay. This screenshot starts with him. He goes, "Hey you, how are you doing these days?" She says, "I'm doing well, enjoying the last weeks of summer with my kids here. How about you?" He goes, "I'm doing okay, enjoying a relaxing week so far." Then he texts again. "We still need to talk about that car's extended warranty, winky face." She says, "Yes, definitely. What's your work schedule?" And then he goes, "I'm free this Sunday, ? Maybe lunch or brunch again. Or if more adult fun is needed, maybe Sunday night, LOL." That was in 3 texts, by the way. This guy is a double texter. Nothing against that, but it's worth noting. So this woman who sent me this message, thank you for sending it. She said that she's in her 40s, this guy is in his 40s, and while he seemed flirty, he spent the whole time talking about himself on the date. He didn't ask her anything about her life. And even when she shared things that you would think someone would be curious about, he did not ask questions. He doesn't find him attractive, and she's wondering if there's any point in seeing him again, even though her therapist suggested giving him a second chance in case he was nervous. Okay, I think you know what I'm going to say on this one. Don't go out again. This one is very simple. First of all, in this text, I love that he's tossing out a lunch or brunch date or adult fun. I mean, you couldn't have two ideas on more opposite sides of the spectrum. What about dinner? Anyway, if someone mentions adult fun, it's very clear what they want, which is hooking up. And look, if you're looking for something casual, if you're looking for a hookup, great. There's your opportunity, but I would say this is a clear no. And honestly, the text isn't the reason why it's a clear no. It's a clear no because this person said she didn't even have fun on the date. He didn't ask her questions. She didn't have a good time, and she didn't find him attractive. That alone makes it a no-go. It's not the text messages, though this text certainly backs up everything she felt on the date. So, like I said up top at this episode, if you're not having fun, just move on. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for trusting me. And if you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or a fresh perspective, share this episode with them. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a very long way. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.